I measure the human performance because I provide timing and scoring for running events of all sorts, from 5Ks and local half marathons to ultra marathons of 50 or 100 miles or more, as well as fixed time events that go as long as 6 to 10 days. And I firmly believe that the limitations that we place on ourselves are psychological more than physical. Because when we're at these events, we often have discussions among ourselves. How far can a human being run? How fast can someone go? And, you know, up until for the first half of the 20th century, it was widely considered that no human being could run a mile in less than 4 minutes until Roger Bannister in May 6th of 1954 did exactly that. Within weeks, 3 or 4 other runners had broken the 4-minute mile because Roger showed it was possible. And now, in the early 21st century, high school, I know a handful of high school athletes have broken 4 minutes for the mile. So it just shows that the barrier may be there, but maybe it's not. As runners, we tend to measure ourselves in a metric, and the usual metric is the pace we run, how fast we're going, how many minutes per mile we're taking. And so, for example, a pace of 6 minutes, 47 seconds a mile, if you had that pace for a local 5K here in the Florida area, you would win most 5Ks here or finish among the first people to cross the finish line. Imagine running 6:47 per mile 100 times in a row. Zach Bitter did exactly that August 2019 at 6 Days in the Dome race in Milwaukee, Wisconsin, when he ran 100 miles in 11 hours, 19 minutes, and 13 seconds. That was a world record at the time, fastest 100-mile ever run. I was really fortunate to be there and witness it and to document that performance. Zach just put on a master class of ultra running. Now, when we consider races, we often consider a race has a finish line, or starting line has a finish line, has a distance in between, has a time clock that ticks off the seconds, and as we race to the finish line, we try and get underneath the time that we want to beat. So there's a second category of ultras called fixed time events, where it's not a fixed distance of 50 or 100 miles. It's 6 hours, 12 hours, 24 hours, 48 hours, 6 days, 10 days. You have as many as 10 days to run as many miles as you can in that time frame. About 15 years ago, a new hybrid sort of event was created. The fertile mind of Gary Cantrell, Lazarus Lake, will be one of the presenters in today's program, created the Backyard Ultra, and he named it after his dog, Big, a pit bull. Big's Backyard Ultra. I've been fortunate to be at every edition of Big's Backyard Ultra. The concept is fiendishly simple and devilishly difficult at the same time. Run 4.167 miles within a 60-minute time frame. At the top of the hour, do it again. At the top of the hour, do it again, until there's only one person left standing. Big's Backyard has been an incredible phenomenon to watch. In 2014, after 49 hours of running, 204 miles, there were 2 runners left in the corral. Jeremy Ebel from Colorado and Sweden's Johan Steen. Johan said, I want to keep running, but I can't. I have to go to the airport. I have to catch a flight home. I have to go back to work. And Jeremy said, I don't want to win that way. So Laz blew the 3 whistles. He rang the bell. They shook hands, and they stepped out of the corral. No winner that year. For me, that was one of the consummate moments of sportsmanship, especially in an era where sportsmanship is so rare and lacking these days. Biggs has turned into an amazing thing. I thought the limit of human performance at a Backyard Ultra was at or near 49 hours. My gosh, was I wrong. 2 of the last 3 years, I've had to reset the clock because the race has gone more than 100 hours. 100 hours. In 2023, Harvey Lewis set the world record at Big's Backyard with 108 hours of running. This year, a couple of weeks ago, he ran 111 hours, which set the American record. But the undisputed king of the backyard ultra, Phil Gore of Australia, there's Harvey Lewis. Phil Gore of Australia ran 114 hours, 475 miles, doing 4.167 miles every hour. Now that's not an arbitrary distance, the 4.167 miles. It's most runners can accomplish that. And if you do it 24 times in a row, it's 100 miles. So every 24 hours, you run another 100 miles. Phil has the world record at 119 hours, which is 1 hour short of 5 full days of running. Now, I often wonder about limits, and I think the backyard ultra, I don't think there is a limit to how many hours people can run. There's no way I would have thought 119 hours. And I predict that in the next few years, we'll see performances that will far outshine that. It's simply amazing what the human body can do. The people who run, Phil Gore, Harvey Lewis, the people at the top of the game, they have a mastery of planning, executing their plan. They have the training, and they have the grit, the determination, and the will to just not stop. Now, a lot of people say, when people ask me what do I do for a living, I say, I time and score running events. But truly, really, my job is to keep honest people honest. So whenever I go to a race and I work a race, I try and put running equipment, timing equipment at the various places on the course so that I can document and I can have the data that show that everyone who runs the race runs the course as specified by the race director. Unfortunately, that doesn't always happen. Cheating is a factor. Cheating happens in running, just as it happens in almost every facet of life. And one of the sort of iconic, for me, examples of a runner cheating was in 2016 when English runner Robert Young came to the United States, and he predicted that he was going to break the record for running across the United States. It's called a trans-con run from ocean to ocean. He started off, and for 3 weeks or so, he ran incredible distances and made it look ridiculously easy. It was so incredible, and it looked so ridiculously easy, that people started to question, is he really running the distances he says he is? And so curious people, a group of curious people, dubbed the Geezers, decided to go find out. They drove out to the Midwest, and they found him on his route. And for a few days, they followed him. And when Robert was actually now running the distances that he said he was running, it became a shambles. Within a few days, he was a shell of himself, and he ended up in the hospital, and the Transcon ended in ignominy. That's really a shame, because it tarnishes and it taints the valid performances that people put up, like Pete Kostelnik, who does have the Transcon record. My first experience with a cheater was at 2017 at Across the Years, which is a fixed time race in Phoenix, Arizona. It was held on a 1.05 mile loop at a spring training complex, and the loop was pretty difficult to cut. But I put timing equipment at the start and about halfway across the loop. And it was my first time there, and it was the first time in the race's 25-year history that timing equipment had been on both sides of the course. Now, it's a 6-day race, but during the 6 days, shorter races start every morning. And a couple of days into the race directors came to me and they said, Mike, we have this guy starting tomorrow. His name is Kelly Agnew, and we're pretty sure that he's cheating, but we can't figure out how. So if you could just keep an eye on him and watch, and if you see anything, let us know. Okay, so Kelly is a pretty accomplished athlete. He has a number of wins on his resume. He's a sponsored athlete by Hammer Nutrition, and he has his own blog. He's got a big social media presence with a lot of followers. He coaches people. And so the race starts, and 3 or 4 hours into the race, I am standing there watching people come through, and I see Kelly come down the course towards the start-finish area, and he jogs on through, and he passes, and on the other side is a big flat panel monitor that displays runner progress, so you can see how far you've gone and where you stand in the race. So he stopped and looked at that for a couple of seconds, and then he walked across the course, and he fiddled with his water bottle a little bit, and then I saw him casually slide behind the big spectator tent that's across from the timing area. And I watched as he moved up course, and I stood and I watched as he stepped out back onto the course ahead of the start-finish area again, right next to a line of portable toilets for the runner's use. And he rolled his wrist, and so I rolled my wrist and looked at my watch. I watched him get into the portalet. 7 minutes and 42 seconds later, he got out of that portable toilet, and he jogged through the start-finish area. Recorded a lap of about 9.5 minutes. That's about a pretty typical time for a 1-mile loop. But I pulled the timing data from the backside of the course, and of course, he had missed that checkpoint over there. So I pulled all the data, and in 17 loops, he had 10 loops, he had hit both sides. The 11th loop, he had missed the backside. The 14th loop, he had missed the backside. And the 17th loop, he had missed the backside. So every 3 loops or so, he's doing this process. So I called the race directors, and I said, I think I have what you need. So they pulled him off the course and talked to him, and they disqualified him. So that story went viral. It was everywhere because he hid in a portable toilet. I mean, come on, who cheats? Who cheats by sitting in a portable toilet? And so it was at the Daily Mail, and it was Sports Illustrated and CNN, and a couple of weeks after the race, a friend of mine called me and said, Mike, I was reading about you on the Drudge Report. And I was like, what are you reading the Drudge Report for? And what did you read? He said, well, did you catch a guy cheating by hiding in a portable toilet? I said, yeah, I did. He said, well, that's what I read. And so a couple of years later, Sports Illustrated did a story, The Porta Potty Cheat. It was an 8-page spread, talked all about what happened. And as it often happens, if you compromise yourself and your integrity in one area of your life, it often carries over into other areas of your life. Shortly after, when we disqualified him at Across the Years, he immediately took down his social media accounts, he shut his blog down, he stopped his coaching service, he disappeared, he moved from Utah to Florida and switched jobs, and a few months later was arrested for embezzling money from his former employer. Now, the tragedy of that situation is that his story took up all the bandwidth for that race. No one talked about Ed Eddinghausen winning the 6-day race for the 3rd time in a row and setting an American 55-59 record, beating the record that Don Winkley held, while Don, as a 79-year-old man, was running in the same race with Ed. Nobody talked about that. Nobody talked about Amy Maurer winning the 72-hour, beating all the women, and beating all the men. Nobody talked about John Giesler or Martina Hausman getting their 4,000-mile lifetime jackets at ATY. Everybody talked about a guy hiding in a porta potty. That's the real tragedy, is that the real accomplishments get overshadowed. Eric Brumbelow, who's a really unique character in a pretty unique universe of ultrarunners, I think he summed it up best for me. There is no need to steal the shine of others in order to make ourselves seem brighter. That says it all. I thought this was funny. The next year, at Across the Years, I happened to visit one of the portable toilets, and somebody had signed in there, serviced by Kelly Agnew. That's about the only funny thing that happened. It brought me no joy to catch him cheating. It's a necessary thing, but it is what it is. So a couple of other performances I want to talk to you about. In fixed time races, where you have a fixed amount of time to run. The 6 Days in the Dome is a race I co-race direct with my co-race director, Bill Schultz, who's here in the audience. And Meg Eckert from Santa Fe, New Mexico came and ran. She had never done a 6-day race before, and she was just a joy to watch because two things impressed me. One was that she smiled all the time. She looked like she was having fun. And the second is that she was really strong in the last day or so. She ran almost 99 miles just on the last 24 hours alone, which is almost unheard of in a multi-day race like that. She had an incredible performance. The other performance that I think is noteworthy in fixed time running, for me, is Don Jans, age 91, at Race for the Ages. Now, you can't really see, you may not be able to see, the clock over his shoulder says 90 hours, 59 minutes, and 52 seconds, because we count down from, we count down instead of counting up. We count down to 0 at Race for the Ages. And Don did 119 miles at age 90 at that race. Watching the clock count down like that made me realize that it's really a metaphor for life. I mean, we always think about time running forward, the clock moving forward, the days scrolling by, when in reality we might well think about how much time we have left, and as it's doing with the sand running through the hourglass. For me, this hit home. A couple of years ago, I was visiting an elderly friend of mine, and she was in hospice. She only had days to live. And so I said, Arlene, can you tell me, what is it like to know that you're dying? And she looked at me and she said, Mike, what is it like to pretend you're not? We all are. One of my favorite quotes is, when death finds you, I hope it finds you alive. I really think that living life, doing what you want to do, is incredibly important. I've been really blessed because 25 or 30 years ago, I made a conscious decision to change my life and have a life of experiences and memories and people instead of a life of stuff and responsibilities that I really didn't want to handle. So I hope all of you can find your passion, and when the time runs out, I hope death finds you alive. Thank you.